Hi, I'm Ben from Gwinear Angling and welcome to the Gwinear Guide to Holywell Bay. So, Holywell Bay, probably one of the most distinctive beaches along the north coast of Cornwall, owing to the gull rocks that you can see out there. I'm sure you've seen those in photographs over the years as a popular subject for photographers. But Holywell is a beach that's very kind to us anglers as well, particularly on the bass fishing. It's really a bass beach. You do get a couple of other species here as well. You get occasional gilt-head bream, you've got a chance of something like a turbot, but predominantly it's bass that draws people to this beach. It's also a very popular beach for holiday makers, and you do get a lot of bathers and surfers in the water as well. So if you're aiming to fish here in daylight, you'll want to make sure that you're staying well clear of those. And most people choose to fish here after dark, really. You've got two main times when people tend to concentrate on this beach. Over the low water, there's more sand out there, the beach is wider, there's a big stretch of sand. There's also a feature out there in the form of a little wreck that can draw fish and is worth targeting. At high water, the beach narrows, it concentrates more to the middle. If you're fishing on the left-hand side there, you will not be able to fish up to high water, you'll get cut off. So make sure if you are fishing down there over low water, you get off there before the tide butts you up against the rocks, because you don't want to get cut off. Like I said, as it comes towards high water, it bottlenecks into the middle on the right-hand side here. And you've got a nice high bank to fish off there. It shelves quite steeply, so you can cast quite short and still catch fish here. It's a beach that really favours anglers that with reduced mobility, or kids, or just someone who wants like a nice lazy session. You can come and fish here at high water. You don't have to move a lot and you can still get stuck into plenty of fish. It's good for that. You get a lot of bass here, a lot of small ones, but you do get some better fish here as well. So it's a beach that appeals to both people that want numbers of bass and people that want size as well. Features wise, you've got, there's a wreck out there at low tide. You can find it on Google Maps and you can target around it. Of course, anything that sticks out the sand that's different from the rest of the seabed around it is going to draw prey, and that in turn draws fish as well, like bass as well. So worth zeroing in on that, because it is a fish attracting feature. Of course, other hot spots are going to be your rocks at either end. Bass are always attracted to features because that's where they find their prey. Otherwise, you're looking for sort of gullies, depressions in the seabed, any sort of channels with water coming down to them, that sort of thing. All the beaches along the north coast tend to have those sort of features, and they're worth zeroing in on and fishing on, because they will attract fish. Anything that's different from the sort of flat plane of sand all around is going to draw prey, and that will draw fish. So make sure you do a bit of observation before you start fishing a beach like this. So conditions wise, what are you looking for here? Well, in common with most of the beaches on the north coast, you do want that little bit of surf. That really seems to get the bass feeding. So something like a little onshore surf like it is today, perfect for your bass fishing. Wind wise, you don't want nothing too strong, nothing too onshore. This beach can get a little bit weedy, so those sort of sustained onshore, strong onshores will tend to push the weed in here, and if it remains like that, then you're going to have a hard time fishing through it. It can really make fishing quite difficult, if not impossible at times, to get a good presentation. So avoid those times if you can. So it's always preferable to target a bigger tide on this beach too. It does favour those bigger tides. It seems to get the bass feeding more. And of course, if you're fishing at low water, you'll have more of the beach to play with. So it's in your interest to fish over that spring low. You can fish a spring high here too. The bank is steep enough that the water doesn't come over the top on a high spring. So that's always a good time as well. As far as gear and bait goes, you're going to need some fairly sturdy gear to fish here. Something like bass rods will be fine with your choice of multis or fixed balls, or you can go for more conventional beach casting gear. Either is fine. There's not a hell of a lot of tide in here. There is a very strong tide run that runs out from Kelsey Head to the Gull Rocks, but inside the beach you're kind of off it, and the fish come inside to feed off that tide. So there's not going to be an awful lot of tide for you to deal with. Of course, if you have a bit of a surf, then you might want to favour that beach caster setup. But if it's just a little onshore turnover, then a bass rod will be fine, or even something like a carp rod if you're fishing very, very close range. Bait wise, worms can be excellent here. Lug and rag both score well with the bass. You'll typically catch any bass that's out there, so that includes the smaller ones. If you want to target that bigger fish, then something like a fish bait like a mackerel, a joey, or a squid bait can be really successful when it comes to picking out those better ones. Of course, it's always important to be aware of what the bass regulations are at the time that you're fishing. At the time of making this video, a maximum of 2 bass can be retained per day, and the minimum size limit is 42 centimetres. No bass are to be retained between February the 1st and March the 31st. That's at the time of making this. At the time that you're fishing, it may be different, so make sure you're up to date on the regulations before you go ahead and think about taking any bass home. So parking wise, Holywell is actually one of the easier beaches around on this coast. There's a National Trust car park right behind the beach here, so that takes care of all your parking needs. Just be aware that in the middle of the day, it can get full there. So if you are aiming to fish through the day, you want to get here early. Otherwise, at the end of the day, fishing into the evening, you should be fine getting a space. So I hope you've enjoyed this Gwinear guide to Holywell Bay. If you have, why not check out another in our Gwinear guide series? If you've got any questions or anything you want to say at all, just pop them in the comments down below. One of us will get to it as soon as we can. Otherwise, cheers, and I'll see you in the next video.